Welcome back, everyone, to my YouTube channel, Patricia Monna Intuitive Consulting. Today, I have two very special guests with me, Darcy Weir and Jay Weidner. Jay and I go way back, and it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you both on the show with me today. Darcy Weir is a documentary filmmaker who's made over 15 feature-length films, and his recent docu-series is now out on Amazon Prime US and Tubi TV for Canadians. So his docu-series, which we're going to be discussing here today, is called The Dark Alliance. Welcome, Darcy and Jay. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Patricia. Good to see you again.
Yeah,
Good to
thanks
see
so
you
much
too.
for having us. Really happy to be here to talk about the series. And of course, we should always give kudos to Jay. He's a longtime filmmaker, producer, production head at Gaia formerly. And he's currently got two films out that are in this sort of Stanley Kubrick's Odyssey series too. So you should check them out. I watched it on Amazon recently. It's really good. It's called
Yeah.
Oh,
Clockwork.
appreciate that. Coming
Yeah.
from you, that's a real compliment.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, because Jay, you're a hero for getting on very last minute. Jordan Sather is your partner in the docu-series. Am I correct, Darcy?
Yeah, so Jordan, I interviewed for the doc, and he's very well connected to this story as he was part of Corey Good's inner circle and was associated with David Wilcock when this whole thing was going down. So he saw from the ground floor what they were doing. He actually flew around the country and filmed all of the interviews for their documentary that they put together called A Cosmic, no, it's called Above Majestic. It's got like a reptilian pope on the front of the poster or whatever.
Yeah.
And then after he filmed everything, he edited the whole film and he has a producer credit. Although, you could say he was the filmmaker behind that whole film, and he got paid for like 3 months, and then they stiffed him for 2 years, and that film is still on Amazon Prime and all these other platforms raking in money, and he hasn't seen a cent. So
Brutal.
he knows what it's like to kind of like follow somebody blindly and then get burned by like somebody who's potentially a cult leader. And he is a content creator. He's a really intelligent guy. He wanted to be on today, but he's actually forced to travel a day early because of a storm that's hitting the Pacific seaboard tomorrow. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's how we were lucky enough to get Jay on last minute. So everything, works out the way it should all the time. Now, regarding this conversation, I want to back up just in case any of my viewers don't have a clue who David Wilcox and Corey Good are, because I'm going to be honest, I had no idea who they were until Jay, a few years ago, right when all of this went down, he asked me to look into it for him, and it was like, okay, who are these people? And I've never watched any of their stuff, so I don't know if my audience knows who they are, but just in case, because I know a lot of my audience does watch Gaia TV, so chances are they do, but I'd love to hear your take on who these two people are that the docu-series is basically about.
Yeah, I can speak to that really quick. I would say that they're both entertainers. One of them, David Wilcock, got his start earlier as a new age entertainer for the Gaiam TV network. He essentially was the host of a show that Jay Weidner put together when he was the head of production over there. That show was called initially Disclosure, and they talked about sort of esoteric knowledge, metaphysic theories, and fringe technologies and stuff like that, and UFOs and sort of that stuff. dipped into the conversation here and there. And sooner or later, Corey Good got brought under David Wilcock's wing and brought into studio and pitched for a new show that David Wilcock was going to do with Corey Good called Cosmic Disclosure. And that show was, bar none, the most popular show that Gaia TV had ever produced, with Gaia at the helm of it, helping shape Corey Good's character, helping David get certain talent on the show, and to really expand the lore and story behind Corey Good and David Wilcock's new narrative. But people in the UFO community, which I'm part of, they quickly started checking a lot of these claims that were being made, Richard Dolan being one of them. He's a friend of mine. And they realized that all of these claims that were being made were backed by zero facts. They're just grandiose stories. And when the UFO community folks like Weir and Dolan and all these people started checking them and protesting them openly, they were getting lined up for attacks on social media, Twitter, Facebook, by groups that were rallying behind David Wilcock and Corey Good. And here we are today. There's been multiple lawsuits by that camp. They were going up against Jay Weidner and many of these people that formerly worked with Corey, including Leon Isaac Kennedy, who's a good man. He's a Christian, not a pastor, but
Minister?
Minister, that's right.
Minister, yeah.
And so, and a former lead actor in many Hollywood films, Penitentiary, acted alongside Muhammad Ali and folks like that. So really well-connected guy that was trying to help Corey at one point on a Hollywood journey, and it all fell apart and ended in lawsuits where Corey was just suing the pants off of everybody to try and keep them from the money they deserved, it seemed like, tied up with all the entertainment productions that they were putting forward.
Now, was his claim Corey Good? So I know David Wilcock's had a show on Gaia, right? But what was Corey Good's claim to fame? Did he say he was abducted by aliens, working with aliens, working on a special space?
All of the above. All of the above.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
He had everything. I mean, he was
Oh,
going to
yeah.
Mars and Saturn and the belt where the comets come from, the Cooper belt, Kuiper belt.
Kuiper belt.
He was went to Venus right
Oh.
after a couple of researchers from Italy discovered they got the Magellan data, but we had a craft that went to Venus and shot radar on the ground, and they created a whole what the surface of Venus looked like.
Yeah.
And these two Italian researchers examined the Magellan data, and they found like roads, not kidding, roads and buildings and all sorts of weird stuff. But they found one thing in particular inside a crater. They found an H-shaped building, a building shaped like the letter H.
Okay.
And then a UFO show, Secure Team, something like that, is their name. They covered that Italian researcher guy and what he found. And ironically, about a week before this guy put the show out, I asked Corey if he ever watched Secure Team 10, and he said, "Oh yeah, I watch it every week." Right? So I knew he watched the show. So then Corey comes in to do a show. So Secure Team 10 puts out this show about this H-shaped building. And then a week after that, Corey shows up at Gaia to do a series of shoots. And he starts talking about how he went to Venus this week. And he went and visited, guess what? An H-shaped building. So I was in the studio and completely freaking out. And so I type in the Secure Team 10, I put the photograph up, and I burst through the door because I was like, at this point, I was just about had it with the guy. And I stuck the thing right in his face and said, "You told me last week you watch this show every week. Now you're telling me that a week after the show goes on, you go to the same place that the show's about?" And I was just so disgusted. And that was the beginning of the downfall for me. The biggest thing that Corey did to me, outside of sucking me into having to produce his show, was that. So he got on Darcy, like in August, right? 2015. So almost 10 years ago. And he did this narrative that kind of went into, and by March of 2016, he was stealing, it was clearly obvious, he was stealing data that people had put out and reef shaping other data that, but anyone, I'm not a UFO guy. Okay. I'm like with you, Patricia, I'm like esoteric and I like alchemy and, UFOs don't really interest me. So I didn't really know the UFO field. So I didn't know a lot of the stuff that he was saying was already out there until people started, like Richard Dolan, started feeding back to me that there was something wrong here. But so I then began watching him and I began saying, "You can't say that. That's the guy's research." And I would start correcting him. So he was getting desperate, like February, March of 2016. So in early April 2016, my feature film, The Last Avatar, opened up on Gaia. There's a huge explosion of publicity and for the movie, and it was the highest rated show they'd ever put out. And then that was in early April of 2016, in which Corey was stumbling, and I didn't know how to handle him. I also didn't believe him anymore, and so he came in. We reviewed what he was going to talk about, and I heard things in there. I thought, well, that's weird, right? And then they came in and they did the show, 4 shows, and the first show was the plot from The Last Avatar. Corey had, in the movie, the hero, a disheveled guy who's trying to make it in Hollywood, gets taken up at Mount Shasta, gets taken into the underground city under Mount Shasta by a beautiful goddess, right? And then she initiates him into the mysteries. And then he comes out and he's now the spokesperson for this thing. That's exactly what this whole entire show is about. So about 15 minutes into the show, when he says, "Oh, and then the beautiful goddess took me into the underworld and she flashed images at me," and I'm flashing images in the movie, right, under his face with slides and stuff, right? I'm just like losing my shit. And I have a African-American woman who's my top assistant, and she's like, "Jay, you're going to have a fucking heart attack. What are you going to do?" And I burst through the door again. This is the last time because I pretty much stopped producing pretty much after this. I burst through the door. I said, "That's a plot to my movie." Right. I was so angry. And he just didn't say anything, just looked at me like a deer in the headlights. And,
Wow.
what can I do? What can I do? I mean, he stole it right from me, and he stole it from me because he knew he could steal it from me.
Wow.
He couldn't steal a plot from a Star Wars movie. Everybody would know it, right? So he took a movie that just came out, he emulates it, and then he got away with it. There's nothing I could do. I went and complained to management. They said, "Well, Jay, it could be a synchronicity. It could be a coincidence. You don't even know if he saw your movie." I said, "Oh, yeah, he did." Like you see Corey rolling doobies and sitting in front of the TV watching my movie, taking notes. "Oh yeah, that's a good one. Oh yeah," and then thinking that because I was his producer, he could get away with it, right? And by the way, Patricia, your reading on Corey back in 2020. Oh my God.
I
I
didn't know
found
who he was.
I found out so much information after the reading that from people, that I know that know Corey, everything you said, the black jar with the white powder and
Oh, that's right. I
oh,
forgot about
oh,
that.
yeah, all that was true.
Oh,
All
wow.
of it. Yeah, I'm not gonna say who told me that, but there was a person close to Corey who told me that. I asked him about because I wrote down everything you said, and
Nice.
I asked close people about it. They go, "Oh yeah, oh all the time." But I think
So
there was also a lot of alcohol too added to that.
is he the one that said about the blue chickens or something?
Yeah,
Blue
yeah,
aliens, blue
blue
chickens?
chicken
Who,
cult.
who was that? Was that
That's
David
Corey. That's
Wilcock or
Corey.
Corey?
No, Yeah, he got that from Betsy Meyer. I can't remember her
Meyer.
name. I've got the book back there. Yeah, it was written in 2006. She had this whole channeling session with tall blue avians, and the book was really obscure. So Corey thought he could lift it, I'm sure. And then again, when people called him out on the internet. Hey, that's Betty Myers stuff. What are you doing, dude? Oh, it's just a synchronicity. It was just a coincidence, right? So everything's just a synchronicity when he gets busted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what it is Corey, because I know his past now, and because I talked to people he went to high school with, I've talked to people that he knew when he was in his 20s and 30s. Corey's just that's like a low quality criminal,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And what I believe happened is that he saw David had, I want to correct the record too. David had a show on Gaia called Wisdom Teachings, which was a top rated show. It was actually really good. He stayed away from UFOs. We talked about esoteric stuff, and it was a high rated show, but he needed more money. And we had a thing there where every host gets paid the same, because we know they all talk to each other. If one gets paid more than the other, they're going to start a big fight.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, Dave, I can't give you a raise. I know you need more money. I can't do it. And he said, oh, I have to stop doing the show. And I said, how about you do another show? And so he said, yes, that's a great idea. So the first show was Whistleblower. He said he's going to get all these whistleblowers to come in and just rat out the deep state, right? And it sounded like a great idea, except nobody would come on camera. So then we changed it to Disclosure, and all of those interviews were my contact, Raymond Hancock and Robert Paval, and those were all me. It was me struggling to find people to put on the show because he couldn't get anybody. And then he he brought in Corey. So then when Corey came in, Corey had, I believe, had seen Disclosure and Wisdom Teachings, and I think he made David his mark, as they say in the con game, and he finagled his way in with David by going to the project, not Camelot, Avalon site. And we know that because Bill Ryan owns the site, found that Corey had gone through all the site and read everything on the site, and all the site talked about everything they're talking about is what his shows were all about. So Corey was probably copying everything onto his computer and everything. And then when he came in, he had brilliantly added something to his narrative that hadn't been added before. When he came in, he talked about how he had an insider who told him that there was going to be an explosion of the sun, a nova, near nova event in the future. He called it can't remember what he called, Big Flash, I think. And I had written 2 books about this monument in the south of France, which warns about a periodic solar flare that hits the earth, right? And I researched it for 20 years, and he clearly, in between meeting David and getting the invite to come to Gaia, he had looked into me, and he added that to his narrative. And then he started adding. Then he looked into Yurka, the owner of Gaia, and he realized that Yurka was really into Sumerian artifacts and language and stuff. So what did he do? Read a couple books on Sumerian literature, and then he brought that and put that in, sprinkled all that in, and it was quite the con, and we believed him. Like I say in Darcy's movie, we believed him. We were a young company, only been around for a couple of years. We thought we could change the world. Everybody was an idealist, all of us were. And we thought that this was the time that they're going to release the secret technology and save the planet, right, from the environmental disaster that's going on, and free energy that doesn't need any power and all that. And that stuff is actually happening now. Just right now, though, only now. So we believed him, and he got the con on us. And I was probably the first one, because I worked the closest with him, to notice that there was something way off. That was about 2 or 3 months into the shooting. I know. And so when at the end of 2015, the owner of Gaia said that we had to put Corey on all of our shows as guests. So George Norrie had to have him on. And George was an ex-naval intelligence, he worked in the Pentagon. He's like, I don't want a guy on my show, right? So I said, okay, you got to have him on the show because the owner of the company wants you to have him on the show. Why don't we do this? Why don't you do your whole interview at the very end, say, Corey, look into the camera and tell the world that you're not a disinformation agent. And Corey did it. And, you know, it was the
Wow.
biggest lie ever. And
Yeah.
I'm sure the guy is going to bring that up in the trial, you know, and show that video clip. But then, you know, I successfully got on the air, as you know, Patricia, in 2019. I'd had all I could take of Corey Good. I saw all the people he had hurt. I saw him attacking Richard Dolan. I saw him attacking Jason Rice and all these people that were coming out. And I started a show called Reality Check. I was going to do only one.
Mhm.
And I got on there and I apologized to the world for doing too good a job making Corey's show and making him believable when he isn't, when he's a con man. And I openly apologized. And that was going to be it. And the next day, Corey attacked me, said that he got me fired from Gaia, which is patently not true. I retired in August of 2018. Thankfully, wanted to get out of there as fast as I could. And just attacking me left and right, saying that I screamed at him in the while shooting, which I never did because the cameras were rolling the whole time. And if they saw anybody, a guy up in the upper management saw me yelling at someone, I would get called into HR. Period. And I never got called into HR even once in my entire almost 7 years at Gaia. So Corey started this war. So I said, okay, I got to go back on. So I went back on and did a tit for tat with him. And this went on for about 13, 14 weeks. And I believe it was you, Patricia, who told me to stop doing it.
Yeah, you're feeding into his demons.
You said, stop doing this, go to another subject or
Yeah.
something. And,
Yes.
you know, and Sharon, my wife, was telling me the same thing. So I said, screw it. I'm giving him too much energy. I'm not going to give
Hard.
him any more.
Yeah.
And then I got, you know, email right after I stopped talking about him that he was going to come and take Sharon's inheritance because she just got her money from her father who died, and we never told anybody. We had a pact that we would never tell anybody that she got an inheritance. So we don't know how he knew that. And I'm going to destroy you and take your home in Boulder and take your home in Crestone. And I was like, whoa, dude, you know, and I showed it to my lawyer and he said, this is like patently illegal. You can't do this. Right. And, but he did it. And I wasn't going to sue him because I'm not a sue happy guy. And I did not sue him back after he lost. But, you know, they sued me in March of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, starting up. And it was a really dark time period for me because I had to pay out over $65,000 to lawyers and the pandemic's going on. And suddenly, you know, if you're a filmmaker during the pandemic, you can't fly. People don't want to have to wear masks. They don't want to get interviewed. They don't want you in their house. It was like this was an absolutely horrible time. The 2020, 2021, and early part of 2022 were like the worst time. But I have a holy day, which is April 1st, Fool's Day, because I'm on the path of the fool. Right? I'm on an alchemical path called the path of the fool, where that is where you have a clean slate. And everything comes in on a clean slate. You don't have any presumptions about anything. And on April 1st, 2024, a Sunday, the judge handed down the big decision and everybody got all dismissed. And happiest day of my life, practically. And he lost. And he's a liar.
Mhm.
He's a cheat. I guarantee it. I know he's a cheat. He cheated people out of money, cheated on his wife. He's just a cheat. And he's a very, very, very bad person. And I don't really like to talk about him, but I want to help Darcy and his film. So I will talk about him. But I have never met, I've met a lot of psychopaths in my life, but I've never met a psychopath like this guy.
Wow.
Yep. Darkness. Just his aura is like crawling with dark or auric worms and
Yeah.
it's just
I remember when I saw his picture, I could see the fraudster and the evil energy that was around him, and that's why I'm like, don't be feeding these guys any of your energy, Jay. It's not worth it, right? And
I stopped.
especially when they claim to know about energy and are supposed to be like a spiritual guru on Gaia. I'm really sorry that you had to go through that, Jay. That's
Another thing that happened, which you'll appreciate, Patricia, is that there's a bunch of us that knew Corey Good, and we kind of talked to each other, right? And converse, talk to each other. And I started waking up on full moon night with complete terror. It had to be a full moon, and I would wake up in a complete terror. I would have horrifying nightmares with blood and violence, and it was horrifying. And I would tell Sharon, and she's like, "Well, that's really weird because you had that happen last full moon." I'm like, "I did?" And she says, "Yeah." And so then I called up a couple of the people that I know that were also associated with Corey Good that he doesn't like. And I said, there's a weird thing going on where I've had 3 full moons in a row now, where I have had literally the most terrifying dreams I've ever had, are super violent, and the violence is against me, and I don't know what to do. And all 3 people I talked to said, "Oh my God, that's happening to me too." Right. So then when I met Leon, who knew Corey, I said, "Corey, does he do like rituals, voodoo rituals or something?" He said, "Oh yeah, he always does them." And I said, "Is there a particular night that he does them?" He goes, "Oh yeah, has to be a full moon." I was like, "What?" So um, I literally poured urine around my house. I had to put crystals everywhere. Sharon and I did all these rituals or counter rituals that she knows to stop the curse from coming in, and it worked. And everybody said after about 2 months that it went away finally. But he was doing it. That's how evil and conniving this guy is.
Jay, that stuff is absolutely real, 100%. And
Yeah.
so, as you know, when I couldn't do that Egypt trip
Yeah.
that you and I were supposed to be on,
Mhm.
I was very, very spiritually attacked because of the
Sure.
one person that I ticked off. And I found out later that he had some woman doing actually black magic on me. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. I do sleep like a baby. I noticed it and it did wake me up a few times. But the thing is that my one of my other healer friends said to me, she's like, "Have you never heard of Defender Shield?" She's like, Defender Shield is where it's at. They have these blankets that are made of Faraday material that block out everything, EMF,
That's
5G,
great to
all of that.
know.
And
That's
it's
really,
literally like a shroud. So I take this blanket with me everywhere, Jay,
I'm
because you
buying
never
one.
know. Yeah, Defender Shield.
I'll buy it.
I can send you the link after, but
Yeah, I do.
Defender Shield blankets are where it's at. When you put it on, not only does it have a fuzzy relaxation effect, it blocks out everything. So the joke's on them. Return to sender, But so I've never had another attack since. And
Yeah.
but yeah, that stuff is very real. But here's the thing, karma's a bitch. And it always, what goes around comes around. And as you know, that person who came after me on that spiritual level has had a very, very hard falling from grace
Oh, oh
and
my,
is out of the industry and will no longer ever, probably ever work in the industry again.
ever
And
again.
so truth always prevails. It always does. It's just a matter of time, right? So just wanted to
Yeah.
tell you about the blanket. It works, Jay.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely buying one and getting one for my wife too, because she's gets attacked by these guys too, you
Oh,
know,
no.
and, uh, yeah. And so now that Corey is pretty much isolated now, it's just him and his wife in their house with their kids, because everybody's abandoned him, including David Wilcock recently just abandoned him and said none of it was real. Um, he doesn't have a bunch of people working together to do these rituals, and he's not powerful enough to do it. But I can tell you that they backfired on him. I know they backfired on him. We got into accidents that were weird. Weird stuff started happening to him, and I would never do that to anybody. I would never.
Me
Uh,
neither. You just got to keep walking.
oh,
And I for me My motto is walk away and let them feel your absence. You
That's right.
know, I just turn my back, I'm done, I close the door, have a great life,
Yep.
and I'm off doing my thing, and their names don't touch my lips ever again, you know, just because I don't ever want to feed them energy, you
I
know.
have a I have a brother who's highly educated, and he wrote me an email saying that he will never talk to me again because of how I voted in the last election.
I
And,
would have voted the same way you voted, so hey.
and so I wrote back. I said, "What makes you think I want to be friends with you anyway?"
Oh God, don't let politics divide, but
Yep.
it's personal choice, you know what I mean? Live
No,
life.
I walked away from him. He's now out of my life. You don't want
Aw,
to talk to me? That's fine with me. I don't care. I just don't want to exchange negatives with you. So,
yes. Yeah, don't exchange the negative for
but
sure.
I did learn a lot from the whole Corey Good experience. I learned a lot. I learned how to see demons. I didn't know how to see demons before, but now I
Oh,
do.
they're real. Very, very real.
Oh yeah, and I have a motto now. If he looks like a creep, it's a creep. And I'm serious. And I very discerning now, and I don't believe hardly anything that anybody says to me anymore. And if you can't back it up with evidence, I don't waste my time. I don't want to hear it or see it. And so in that way, so what I also want to say here, I think Corey Good and this film had that effect on the entire community. The community was a naive people, that bunch of do-gooder but naive people who believed anything that anybody said. You go to the UFO conferences, it was so painful to watch. Oh yeah, 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 he's right, he's right. No, no, he's not. And I think that what Corey Good did was teach us how to discern on a level. And I think Darcy's film is like the last pound of the nail into the wood, where you can't really deny it after seeing the film that he's a complete schmuck.
So, Darcy, what made you want to do a film about this?
Um, well, I followed Corey since he entered the scene back in 2015 on Gaia. Um, and I've always been into ufology. I've always been following these intricate stories that have been arising from the realm of ufology, the different speakers, their theories on what the phenomenon is, yada yada. And when I noticed what Corey and David Wilcock were professing, I knew right away, like, this is dangerous, right? Because
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is just, it's truth by proclamation. It's just saying, I know and it is true, and you better believe it. And so many people were believing it, just like Jay was saying. And that's dangerous because it can lead people down a bad path if
Mhm.
it's untrue, if it's some kind of selfish endeavor. And with you, we were speaking just before we went live, and you were talking about a certain charlatan in the community that's got a
Mhm.
lot of power, a lot of followers. He's taking people's money, he's taking advantage of vulnerable people. And, when you started looking into it and saying some things about it, people started reaching out to you and they
Yeah.
started saying, hey, there's something really here. You're right. It happened to me. And this is how I was affected, and good for you. And, you know, I've done other documentaries where people have reached out to me and said, look, I really like your storytelling and I really like what you've said about this thing, this certain story that's come out of ufology. Um, but with this recent release, Dark Alliance, who I actually did a lot of work with another person named Kari Lindsay in terms of researching and putting together all the data. Kari was the narrator. They had a lot of gravitas in telling the story, so kudos to them. But once I got the story out, so many people recently have actually reached out to me and said, "Look, I know more. You got to talk about
Mm.
this next, and there's this thing that happened, and there's these people doing this and taking advantage of people." And I think it's something for me, what's important is telling the truth about certain things that are happening around the world. And I do think that there is a presence here, a phenomenon that we would call UFOs, UAPs, and there are real whistleblowers, but there's also fakes and phonies and people that are here to grift on stuff that's happening around the world, and take advantage of that opportunity so that they can have their moment in the spotlight. So I guess I'm kind of operating slightly on a karmic justice point of view, and also just as a storyteller and a researcher, it feels good when people are saying you're onto something and you've done a good job. So I think that's why I pursued the story. I started shooting it in basically 2021, where I spoke out about, bird people and, not falling under the certain illusions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
At a conference called the UFO MegaCon in Laughlin, Nevada. And, I didn't know if I was going to release the documentary because it was nerve-wracking. There was so many releases and rights and stuff I had to get. I finally got them, and here we are. It was all worth it.
Not to mention you're making a film about a guy who's sue happy.
So is
Yeah.
that okay? Like he can't sue you for this, right? Because it's all fact.
Yeah,
I don't
it's all public record, and all video and audio clips and stuff that I got were, part of the open public record, or I got the rights to use them. So
Good. Okay,
that's the
excellent.
way it works. He can try if he wants,
You
but
won't.
if we go into discovery on a court case like this, there's a lot more that I could bring forward, and it would be very much more damaging to somebody like this.
Hmm.
I know what you
Wow.
got. Yeah,
Well,
he won't do it. Don't worry about it. He's not going to sue you. He doesn't have any money. Guy is going to take every dime he's got anyway. So, you know,
my advice to Gaia is to really do their homework before they have people on the show. So I went
very
to Gaia and I was on George Norrie
sure.
in August of 2020 during the height of all of it. Am I allowed to spend my last 2 weeks in quarantine because I left the country? But I do remember, like, Sid was an excellent producer where he did so many background checks on me. He spoke to victims' families that I'd worked with. He spoke to a police officer that I worked with. He did his background on me to make sure that everything I claimed was legit. And I can back up everything that I say, all my casework. So I'm kind of surprised that it went this far, that they gave him a platform, right? Like, that, because
Well,
it's
what they were
spiritual
doing, they were
Netflix.
looking for a flagship. A flagship is a show that carries the whole network. Like, so you have,
Got it.
right? It's the only show that everybody all watches, and everybody sort of watches everything else, right? And they didn't have a flagship. And I wanted it to be um, Regina Meredith, who I think is the best interviewer on earth. And oh, she's in her 50s and we want somebody younger. And I was like, I don't know about the age thing, but she's like got the intellect of a really good interviewer. And then
Mm.
they chose him, and they threw all their dice behind him, and then they became the biggest show, and they were dominant. And then that went to their head. So if you want to get the short story here, that went to both David and Corey's head. They thought that they were the reason, not the millions of dollars a guy was spending on advertising, which was the reason. And they began thinking that all the people were only watching them and nobody was watching anything else. I don't know where they got this idea. And then they decided that they were going to go off and start their own streaming network, and that they were going to destroy Gaia on their way out. And so that's what caused David to write the big long War and Peace resignation letter. And That's my wife. And that's when the battle started. And Corey began the super trash job on Gaia. He had a whole bunch of minions and they were running around and writing all the stuff that wasn't true. And it was so vicious. Never seen anything more vicious in my whole life. And that was the reason I started Reality Shack, because I had to have some kind of counter. Because I wasn't working at Gaia anymore. I'd retired, and Gaia really couldn't say anything because they're a big corporation. And I had to set the record straight and set things right. And that's how it went.
Yeah, and I think Gaia is a very powerful network. They have 600,000 subscribers. So when they put out something, they have a very large base of people that will take it seriously. And when you have somebody like David Wilcock, who's also got a very powerful following and network, when he says something, people take it seriously. And so when he came forward with Corey, that's how I think the whole vetting process got thrown by the wayside.
Yeah, because David said right away that he had vetted him with all of his insiders, and they all said he was a real deal, right? And David supposedly had all these people in the military and intelligence. But interestingly enough, I only met one of these insiders. That was Pete Peterson. And the first question I asked Pete when he came to Gaia was, "So you believe Corey, huh?" He goes, "I don't believe that guy," right? And yeah. So the only insider I ever met didn't believe it. So I don't know. So David, in desperation to get money, bullshitted everybody.
Brutal.
Yeah.
That is brutal.
And since you can't really vet somebody that's in the secret space program, you go to other people in the secret space program, ask if this guy's for real. And that's what David said he did. But I don't think he did.
No, it doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like he was a paid actor and that's about it.
That's about
Honestly.
right. Yeah. And I think Jordan Sather in the movie kind of proves the shenanigans that were going on, but behind the scenes, proving my whole point.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was very well done, Darcy.
Yeah, it
Very
was.
well done. Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
it's awesome that it's out on Amazon Prime in the US. And Tubi TV. I'd never heard of Tubi TV until you sent me the link for it, for Canadians. But yeah, I watched it this weekend. It was very, very well done. So congratulations on bringing it out.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a long process, but finally got it out. It's also in the UK on Amazon Prime and free in the UK. So people just, if they have a subscription, they can see it, which is a testament to their choice. You know, Prime does not pick every feature to go under their Prime Video for free subscriptions. So yeah. It's been cool releasing it so far. I know that some people have been kind of like attacked since it came out. My friend Leon Isaac Kennedy recently was alerted to the fact that he was accused of being some kind of deviant by Corey, and he's pretty upset because this is a pillar of the community in Los Angeles who has done a lot of right by a lot of people who have come up in the industry there. And I think at one point he was trying to do that for Corey, but somehow this whole thing got turned against him, and Leon's character has been thrown under the bus, and he's spent, I'd say, a lot more in legal battle fees than even Jay. So it's been hard on him, and I think he's still recovering from that whole experience.
Brutal.
I know he is. And it was a terrible event for Leon. And, because he's done just a lot of good for the community there in Los Angeles. And he like bends himself backwards to help people in trouble and everything. And then he had to take all of his money and put it on a lawyer, and he couldn't help anybody for the whole 3 years of going through all this stuff. And it broke his heart, because he couldn't help anybody anymore. And before we go, I just want to say one thing. I also have a new movie out on Amazon Prime called A Clockwork Shining. It's a Kubrick Odyssey 3. That's the last film in my Kubrick Odyssey trilogy. So it just came out. A Clockwork Shining, it's called. You know, I think you'll like.
Fantastic documentary. The way that Ryder, Lee, and Jay have gone into breaking down all these symbologies that were laid out in, The Shining, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you're working on something else too, aren't you? You mentioned
Yeah,
before we start filming.
shooting. I just shot a pilot in Sedona of hopefully it'll be a 6-season TV series, 12 shows a year. So
Nice. And
yeah,
Sedona is my favorite place to be. I teach there. I teach
it was
my
so
psychic
beautiful
development
there.
retreats there. Oh, it's my favorite place on earth.
Oh,
And it's the best
it's
place to activate people because all of a sudden they can see. They can see.
yeah.
But I think it's
I
all
don't
the
like to shoot
vortexes.
outside. I really don't like it. But I shot the whole thing outside with the vistas, and everything, and the shoot just went 100% so well. It had
Nice.
airplanes or anything, and it was like I knew that the universe wanted this pilot to be a success. So, and I'm not
Nice.
selling it to Gaia. I want to go to either Amazon or Netflix.
Nice. Nice. Well, congratulations and
Thank you.
congratulations to you both
Yeah,
on
we both
a
have films
job
out at
well
the same
done.
time.
Well, and getting the information out there, it's so important. That's definitely one thing that I learned over COVID was because I didn't even have a YouTube channel before that. So it's important that we speak our truth and speak up and stand up and do
I
the right
remember you
thing.
told
So
me during the COVID crisis something that was really funny. You said you were at a store or something, you would refuse to wear your mask, and some woman looked at you and said, "You should have a mask on." And you said, "Why? I'm not wearing panties."
I did say that. I did say that.
That was funny.
Yeah, I did say that. I worded it
That
a
was
little
funny.
differently. I can't remember how I worded it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
you were more funny than I said it, but
Yeah, I had a
it
lot of
completely
comebacks.
shocked that lady.
Yeah, I had a lot of comebacks where yeah, they usually, kept walking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just couldn't do it. And you know what? Boys, to this day, I'm still a COVID virgin. I got
Yep.
nothing, not even a sniffel. I have not
Yep.
been sick since 2011. So, like nothing. There hasn't even been a day where I went, "Ooh, I have a headache." Literally
There we go.
nothing. And
Nothing. Same here.
I know for a fact that I sneezed once in this whole 4 years. I never sneezed. You know why I know it was only once? Because I love a good sneeze. That's such a release. And I sneezed once when I was on my deck shaking out the dust from
Yeah.
all the carpets. And I sneezed. I was like, oh my God, I finally
Super
sneezed.
toxic.
I love sneezing. So,
Yeah.
anyways, that's why it's not on my timeline. When you know, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What we did was we just went out traveling. Gas was $2 a gallon. We went to San
Oh,
Diego. We got a townhouse right on the beach that would normally go for $1,000. I think we got for 200 because nobody was traveling.
sweet.
We went to Sedona, stayed there for a week, and got a
Nice.
giant house for like $500 for the whole week. And
Oh my God.
it
Were
was
you guys allowed, to fly?
no,
Or
we
no,
drove.
just
We
drove.
drove.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we were locked down hard.
you were.
Like
Yeah.
even you weren't even allowed on a public transit
Yeah.
if you didn't have a QR code, if you didn't have your symbol.
So
So
embarrassing looking back at it.
it's horrible.
Yeah.
I still got some PTSD from that time period. Like Trudeau's
Yeah.
really gotta go. But that's a whole other conversation. Now that Trump is in, Trudeau's next.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know so. I think so too.
I'll just say one thing about that. There is something so weird going on in America right now. I've never seen anything like it. I don't know what to say about it, but I have, it's so weird that I had this thought the other day that Trump is like some kind of
Movement.
mystical shaman who can like change reality. It's like the whole
I
reality changed the minute the election came. I mean, it literally changed. I
yeah,
can't tell you how, but nobody rioted, and
yeah,
they boarded up New York, they boarded up Washington, D.C., they boarded up Boston. Nobody rioted. Their other side is like completely stunned. They don't know what to say or do because they've been getting bad information from the lousy media that
exactly.
Yeah, that's what
Their
happened.
woke agenda woke everyone up to the BS
It
that they
did.
were trying to feed us up here in Canada too. So I thank God that we've jumped timelines. I was actually very worried about 2025. I could feel something huge, the energy of it being huge. But now, like I know that when I looked at at this year, the top half of the year would be fine. Travel, do your thing. The bottom half, that election, and just I could feel almost like a time shift or a heavy energy, and it was like, oh my God, okay, what is that? My natural, left brain logic wants to go, oh God, because it's so scarred after the past 4 years. What do they got next? Now I think we've stepped onto a golden timeline. I think we've literally shifted timelines with this, and the left didn't see it coming because they thought their woke agenda and shoving everything down people's throats, they thought people took it hook, line, and sinker. They're not
Didn't.
realizing that it was the Biden administration, and Harris is Biden as far as I'm concerned. They're the ones that locked you guys down hard and said, oh, it's going to be a winter of death for the unvaccinated. And
Yeah, I
if
couldn't
you
believe he
don't
said that.
take it, I'm healthy as a horse. What do you say now? And, and as a person of power, to project that
A
into this
horrible thing to
reality
say.
is
Yeah.
sick. It just, I wasn't taking what they were selling, and they weren't even selling. They couldn't even give it away for free, So anyways, that's a whole other topic, but Trudeau,
Well, now they're trying to start World War III, so who knows what they're going to do
they
here.
would have. That's the thing. If they would have gotten in, I honestly think that it would have been World War III. I think that that's what they want for the economy or whatever, gets into their pocket when they start wars. I think that you look within 24, 48 hours, people are talking peace in the Middle East. Putin and Zelensky and the Hamas and everything. Look at what's already happened.
Well,
Already.
there's mass resignations in the FBI and the CIA.
Yeah.
Inspector generals are responsible for everything that they do in these agencies. Both resigned today. And it's like the drain the swamp is going to happen. It'll be done before he even takes office. That's what it looks like. So I don't know. It's really weird. It's just really weird.
I know. We'll
Every
have to
80
wait and see.
years, every 80 years, the United States goes through this really dramatic change. 80 years ago, it was World War II. 80 years before that, it was the Civil War. 80 years before that, it was the Revolutionary War. And so this is the most dramatic period in the last 80 years. And it's a realignment, a complete realignment of everything, of reality itself.
And it's a time for truth to be told.
That's
It
right.
really is.
Yeah.
So, with that being said,
And I
is there,
think Darcy's film is part of that.
yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I totally do. That's what I mean. It's time for
Yeah.
truth to be told. It really, really is. It's the information ages. So, Darcy, thank you so much for this awesome, informative interview. Because, like I said, I didn't really know who these characters were. And Jay, thank you so much for jumping on last minute.
Yep.
And
Fun.
being the, I thank you guys, and thank you for putting out that information because yeah, it's people need to hear the truth. They do. So Darcy, how can people get a hold of you, or do you have a website?
Yeah. My studio site is www.occultjourneys.com. And on Twitter, I'm at occultjourneys. Instagram, Darcy Weir Films. And yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been a great chat, and I look forward to chatting with you in the future about future releases.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And Jay, how can people get a hold of you?
I got my free writings are on jweidner.com, and I have a show on YouTube called Reality Check, which you've been on 2 or 3 times now. And that's about it.
Okay.
All my
Well,
movies are all up on Gaia and Amazon. I have about 25 films out.
do you have any on Tubi, or is that just a
Yeah,
Canadian?
JFKX is on Tubi.
Okay,
Yep,
perfect.
my
Good to
last
know.
film. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in and joining us. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to the channel, I encourage you to do so you don't miss any upcoming information. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care. God bless, and we'll see you soon.
See you later.